Sonic Frontiers is a lot of things. It's a lot of things to a lot of people. A lot of opinions have come out since this game launched. Some people think that this game is the best 3D Sonic game in the modern Boost era. Some think that this game is the worst 3D Sonic game in the modern Boost era. People think that this is the best game to come out since Sonic Generations, and others think that it's a major step backwards. Like I said, a lot of opinions on this game. Something I think we can all agree on though is that this game, without a doubt, is polarizing. A polarizing Sonic game shouldn't come as a surprise to most of us anymore given the Blue Blur's track record even over the last 10 years. But this game is different. There's something about Sonic Frontiers that sets it apart from the past entries in the Sonic franchise. There's a lot of things that set it apart actually. But with all the differences that this game does for the Sonic series, does it actually make the game good? We've come a long way since Sonic Generations, a game that, to many people, myself included, think perfected the boost gameplay for 3D Sonic games. I remember when this game first came out, there was a lot of hope for the future of 3D Sonic titles. If future games came out with this style of gameplay, with new level designs and themes, Sonic would be in a new golden age on par with the adventure titles. 10 years later, and, well, I think it's safe to say Sega fumbled it, to say the least. Since the release of Sonic Generations in 2011, there have been several mainline Sonic games to come out. Sonic 4 Episode 2 came out, and, well, it was better than the first one at least, but still nowhere near the faithful return to 2D Sonic that was promised. Sonic Lost World completely ditched the boost gameplay that made Sonic Generations as fun as it was, and while it wasn't a bad game, it certainly wasn't the game we all expected, or wanted for that matter. Sonic Boom Rise of Lyric... Sonic Mania came out in 2017 and absolutely blew everyone away with how amazing it was. A true return to 2D Sonic that was made by the fans for the fans. A game so good that it easily makes my top 5 Sonic games, and I think just beats out Sonic 3 and Knuckles as my favorite 2D Sonic game. Unfortunately, this game has the burden of being tied to one of the most mediocre Sonic titles to come out, probably ever, Sonic Forces. This game, man, it really could have been so much more. There are some good aspects to this game, and the soundtrack, as expected from Sonic games at this point, is great. Banger main theme, really good level tracks. The boost gameplay was fun enough, though a lot of the game really did feel like it was boost to win. A lot of my issues with this game come in the fact that it was just so unbelievably unmemorable. Apart from the create a character element, a lot of this game just felt forgettable. Even the worst Sonic games are remembered for how bad they are. Sonic 06 and Shadow the Hedgehog always stuck with me because of how bad they were. But Sonic Forces wasn't even that bad, it was just unmemorable. Then, nothing. For 4 years, we heard nothing. Even as Sonic the Hedgehog's 30th anniversary came and went, all we got was a subpar remake of Sonic Colors for modern consoles, and a 2D Sonic collection that is easily overshadowed by anything that the modding community has been able to make. It wasn't until the tail end of the year-long celebration where we finally got a teaser for the next mainline Sonic title. And there wasn't much to get excited about. After the initial teaser, we didn't hear much from this new Sonic game until the Game Awards in 2021, where we finally learned the title of this game, Sonic Frontiers. An open world, an open zone Sonic game that's giving off huge Breath of the Wild vibes and a much more serious tone. I was cautiously optimistic, but I still tried to keep my expectations low. There wasn't much to go off of in the trailer, but the idea of an open world Sonic game where you can run around the world with Sonic speed genuinely seemed like a fun concept. IGN sometime later obtained first look footage of the gameplay, and this game was looking less and less good each time we saw it. It wasn't until about a month before the game came out where the trailers we received started to show a game with promise. Like I've said before, I'll always support the Sonic franchise and buy the next installment of the series because of my emotional attachment to these games, and this was no different. Good or bad, I was going to play this game. And what we ended up getting was nothing like what I was expecting. This game blew me away with how much fun it is to play. 10 years of a steady decline in quality will do that, I suppose. I quickly realized that this Sonic game was nothing like what we've gotten ever before. This was good. This was fun to play. I spent almost an hour on level 1-2 just trying to get the S rank, and the entire time I'm just smiling from ear to ear because I was actually having fun trying to figure out the mechanics of the game and how to go as fast as possible. It was fun. This game was able to get me to invest in the mechanics of the game, how to optimize my speed in the levels and in the overworld. It got me wanting to play the game and to play it good. For me, when a game is able to get me this invested, that's how I know it's going to be fun. Sonic Frontiers does a lot right as a game in my opinion. I think that the open world exploration works and it's really fun to go through, though it does start off a bit slow. All the rails and springs scattered across the world make traversing have this sort of flow to it that I think fits the Sonic style. Going through these paths also reward you with these memory tokens for taking these routes, with these tokens being used to progress in the main story, as well as the side story if you want to explore that as well. There's plenty of challenges to do across the map, along with enemies scattered around with a couple bigger bosses roaming the area as well. The challenges are fun enough, but I'm not really sure if challenging is the best term to describe them, as a lot of these challenges are pretty simple puzzles. Except for this laser puzzle, which was ridiculous if you didn't get it with blind luck like I did. The mini-bosses are fun too, though it does kinda get annoying when you're running around the world just to get interrupted by the mini-boss title. Apart from the open world exploration, you're also given traditional Sonic gameplay in the form of these cyberspace levels. And this is where you get that classic high-speed Sonic gameplay that we've all been acclimated to. Your main goal in these stages is to perform well to obtain these keys that unlock the Chaos Emeralds, necessary for the boss fights in this game. These levels are fun for the most part, though they lack challenge, with the exception of 1-2, for some reason. Most of my first time runs resulted in either A's or S ranks, and not all of them are required to play through to beat the game, really ensuring that this is a Sonic game that you can play how you want to play it. Where this game really shines for me though is in its boss fights. Like much of the game, they aren't very challenging, but they are definitely a spectacle to play and experience your first time through. Having to shadow the Colossus your way up these bosses is really fun to do, and Sega and Sonic Team really decided to fully embrace the Dragon Ball comparisons with these fights. After transforming into Super Sonic, that's when the boss fights kick it into high gear, rocking some of the hardest and best boss teams in the franchise to date. The music during these boss fights, and the soundtrack in general, is just full of bangers, something that I think is just expected from Sonic games at this point. The story I have kind of a mixed opinion on, I'd say. I don't really play Sonic games for the story, but I certainly don't mind if the story is good, like Sonic Colors the story. This game went for a more serious tone, which I can appreciate, even if it leads to some awkward character interactions. It is really interesting and cool to see the story expand into the history of the Chaos Emeralds. These gems have been a series staple since Sonic 2, but in the 30-year history of the franchise, we don't honestly know a whole lot about them, apart from some flashbacks in Sonic Adventure 1. It's an interesting story for sure, and I'm curious to see where future games go from here. While I was having a blast playing this game, I can't say that it also doesn't have its fair share of problems. Like most Sonic games, there's a good amount of jank. Physics sometimes don't quite make sense. The popping in this game is too noticeable to glance over. And there are moments where the game doesn't really know what to do when certain movements occur. Beyond the technical problems, the game itself has some questionable design choices, to say the least. Specifically during the tail end of the third island, this game feels like it has a somewhat significant drop-off in quality. The end of the third island has Sonic play pinball, with a goal of an absurdly high 5 million points, with only 3 chances to get that score, or else you have to start over. The fourth island is not really a whole lot, you're just climbing these really tall towers that suffer from the jank mentioned earlier, and the fifth island is just the other half of the first island. The final boss I also think falls a bit flat, which is sad to say because all the other boss fights in this game were just so spectacular to play and experience, while the final boss is just a glorified hacking minigame from earlier and wasn't much of a challenge as a final boss. A lot of this game isn't very challenging actually. In my first playthrough of the game, I decided to play it on hard mode. As someone who believes himself to be a Sonic veteran, I figured that I'd be more than capable of finishing this game on its hardest difficulty, and yeah, this game was super easy. Like I mentioned, this game does a lot right, but it's not without its flaws. I think it's pretty safe to say that a lot of people tend to be more harsh when it comes to their opinions of Sonic games, and maybe deservedly so because of the history of Sonic games. Because of all the pros and cons I've mentioned here, people I think are going to fall into two separate camps of where their opinions of Sonic Frontiers lies. Some people are going to see this as another bad Sonic game in a pile of bad Sonic games. The issues brought up, the janky controls and physics, the pop-in, the fall-off in quality, these things are too overshadowing of the things that make this game good. As a result, it makes it a bad game. On the other side, some people will think that this game is the dawn of a new age of good Sonic games. The issues are there, but the rest of the game, the high-speed gameplay, traversing through the overworld, the new level formats, and the boss fights, all of these things more than make up for this game's other shortcomings. For me, I mean, after years and years of bad to mediocre Sonic games, I'm just really happy to have a Sonic game that's actually fun to play. Sonic has disappointed me a lot for the last 10 years or so. So for this game to be as fun and good as it is, it's honestly more than what I could have asked for out of Sonic Team after games like Sonic Boom and Sonic Forces. This game gave me a feeling I haven't felt in a long time, and it's genuine joy just playing a game. Being a lifelong Sonic fan definitely plays a factor into that, because I have such fond memories of playing older titles and enjoying those so much. It's been a long time since Sonic has been that good. Playing through the world, blazing by the open world, and playing through these boss fights that have such amazing presentation made me smile, and it made me remember why I was a fan of this series to begin with. Does this game have its issues? Of course it does. You'd be silly not to acknowledge that this game has its fair share of problems, something that is honestly just expected from Sonic games at this point. To me though, I do believe that the rest of this game more than makes up for the issues that it has. This game is far from perfect. Quality-wise, it doesn't even compare to games like Mario Odyssey, Breath of the Wild, Elden Ring, God of War, and I'm not even sure if I'd want future Sonic games to match this game's style. But if they can improve on what they've done here, I don't see that being a bad thing by any means. I had a lot of fun playing this game, and that's something that I honestly haven't said in a while. This was my most anticipated game of the year, bar none, and to me, Sonic Frontiers is fun. Sonic Frontiers is good.